My name is Alex, and I drive for a food delivery app part-time. This happened 3 months ago, on a Thursday night. It had been raining non-stop for hours, and most drivers had logged off. I stayed on for one last delivery. Big tip, just 5 miles away, rural area. The house was old and quiet, tucked into thick trees. I left the food on the porch like the instructions said, took a photo, and turned to leave. That's when I saw him. A man, standing across the dirt road in the rain, not moving, no umbrella, no expression, just staring. I assumed it was the homeowner, so I waved and jogged back to my car. But when I looked in my side mirror, he was standing at the back of my car, inches from the trunk. I swear I didn't hear him move. I drove off fast. The rain picked up again. I figured maybe I was just tired, but I kept seeing the same thing in my mirror. A figure, in the fog, standing still. I got home drenched. My hoodie was soaked through, my shoes squished with every step, and all I wanted was to dry off and forget about that guy on the road. But the moment I stepped into my apartment, I froze. There were wet footprints leading from the front door, inside the apartment. I live alone, no pets, no visitors. I followed the prints with growing dread. They led from the door, across the living room, and stopped in the middle of the kitchen. Just stopped. No trail going back. Like someone had just vanished. Then I noticed the puddle under the table. Not just water, it was rainwater, cold, murky, with tiny clumps of dead leaves floating in it, exactly like what was running down the street earlier. I checked the windows, still locked. The front door had been bolted shut when I arrived. My hands were shaking. I thought maybe I tracked it in somehow, but the footprints didn't match my shoes. Then the power flickered once. The ceiling light dimmed to a weak orange glow. The refrigerator hummed louder. My apartment suddenly felt smaller, like the walls had crept in a few inches while I wasn't looking. That's when I heard it. The doorknob. Turning. Slow. Deliberate. Crept toward the front door, phone in hand. The knob jiggled gently, as if someone was testing it, trying to see if I'd forgotten to lock it. Then it stopped. Silence. I leaned forward, squinting through the peephole. Nobody. But just as I turned, back, the puddle was gone. No water, no leaves, no footprints. In its place was something else, a single muddy shoelace, soaked through, just lying there. And then I saw it. Wet footprints again. Fresh. Leading from the kitchen to the hallway that led to my bedroom. I bolted to my bedroom and locked the door, heart pounding so loud I could hear it echo. I grabbed my phone to call someone, anyone, but the screen was black, dead, and I know I charged it before leaving earlier. Outside my door, I heard something. Not footsteps, dripping. Slow, heavy droplets, like water falling onto wood. Then, a soft shuffle, a dragging sound, something wet moving. I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. Then I turned and noticed something. In the far corner of my bedroom, by the closet, there was a puddle forming. But my room had no leaks. No windows were open. It hadn't even rained in this direction. I stepped closer. The closet door was slightly ajar, just enough to see pitch, black between the slats. Water dripped from inside it. I hesitated, then slowly reached out and opened the door. Nothing. Empty clothes rack. No shoes. No mess. Except on the floor, at the very center, was a delivery bag. The same bag I had, dropped off earlier that night, still sealed, still warm. But I never brought it back with me. I crouched to touch it, and that's when I heard breathing. Not mine. From above. I looked up slowly. Folded into the top corner of the closet, like a spider, was the man. His limbs were bent, his head tilted unnaturally to the side, eyes wide and unblinking. His soaked clothes clung to his body like dead skin, and his mouth was stretched into a slight, tight smile. His fingers twitched. Then the light went out. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. Everything was wet. My socks, the floor, my skin, like the rain had followed me inside, like I was being swallowed by it. I blacked out. When I came to, it was morning. The closet was empty. The puddle was gone. My phone was on the table with 1% battery. One notification. Order confirmed. Returning delivery to sender. Nobody believes me. People say I hallucinated or made it up. But I still hear the rain some nights when the sky is clear. And every few weeks, at exactly 2:11 a.m., someone in my building gets a knock on their door. Not loud, not urgent, just waiting. And if you open it, he steps in, and the rain starts all over again. I work as a night shift waiter at a small, old-fashioned restaurant just off the highway in a quiet Pennsylvania town. The place is called Miller's Diner, and it's been around since the 60s. Most nights, we serve truckers, lonely travelers, or a couple of locals looking for late-night coffee. Nothing ever really happens here. But that night, everything changed. It was around 9:45 p.m. when the rain began. Not a light drizzle, a heavy, blinding downpour that hit the windows like thousands of fists. The parking lot emptied quickly as customers rushed to their cars. My manager, Cliff, told me to start closing up early, since no one else was likely to show. I was wiping down the counter when the bell above the door rang. A man walked in. He was soaked to the bone, but he didn't look in a hurry. He wore an old tan trench coat, buttoned wrong, and had a hat that shadowed most of his face. He sat at the last table by the window, the one in the corner that almost no one ever chooses. I approached with a menu and asked, "Rough weather, huh?" He didn't answer. He didn't even look at me, just raised a hand slowly and pointed at the table. There was something strange about his fingers, longer than normal, pale, wet. "Coffee?" I offered, trying to stay polite. He finally spoke in a voice dry and cold. "Black. No sugar." I brought him the coffee. When I returned to refill it 10 minutes later, the cup was full, untouched, but the seat across from him was wet, like someone else had just been sitting there. By 10:30 p.m., the rain had grown worse. It wasn't just a thunderstorm anymore. It sounded like the sky was tearing itself open. Water began creeping beneath the front door, soaking the floor tiles. I threw down towels and tried sealing the gap with anything I could find, but it was useless. The rain was forcing its way in. Cliff, the manager, was in his office finishing the nightly inventory. I was left alone out front. That's when I noticed it. The man in the trench coat was still sitting at the corner table, motionless. But now, there were wet footprints trailing away from the booth, heading down the narrow hallway toward the restrooms. But I never saw him move. A chill ran down my spine. I was staring at a man who hadn't touched his coffee, hadn't spoken another word, yet footprints, 2 sets, appeared as if someone, or something, had walked alongside him. "Sir, do you need anything?" I asked loudly. No response. He didn't even blink, just sat there. I approached the hallway. One of the bulbs overhead flickered and went out, casting half the corridor in shadow. The air smelled like mildew and something metallic, like old water pipes and rust. I knocked gently on the restroom door. "Hello? Anyone in there?" Silence, then drip, drip, drip. Not from a faucet. It sounded heavier, like something wet was moving. I pushed the door open slowly. The entire restroom was soaked. Water puddled across the floor. The walls looked as though they'd been sweating. One of the stall doors creaked, slowly swaying as if someone had just left it. Then I saw the mirror, fogged completely, but something had been drawn in the steam. He brings the storm. The letters ran like ink in water. My breath caught in my throat. I turned back quickly and walked, nearly ran to the dining area. And when I got there, the man was gone, vanished. The table where he sat, dry, bone dry, as if he had never been there at all. But the coffee cup was still full, steaming slightly, placed neatly where I'd left it. Then I looked down. 2 sets of wet footprints. They weren't coming in. They were going out, toward the counter, toward me. But the front door had never opened. The bell hadn't rung. The air was deathly still, but I swear, I could hear breathing, low and damp and close. Suddenly, I wasn't alone. Cliff came out of the back room and found me standing stiff behind the counter, pale and shivering. I tried to explain about the man, the footprints, the restroom, but all he did was laugh and tell me to go home and get some rest. "You've been watching too many ghost shows, kid," he chuckled. But I knew what I saw. I locked up the diner and stepped into the parking lot. The rain hadn't let up. It had only gotten worse. Water poured from the sky like it wanted to bury the entire town. My shoes squelched in the flooded gravel as I hurried to my car. I unlocked the door, jumped in, and froze. There were muddy footprints on the back seat, human-shaped, barefoot. My heart hammered. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and sped off down the empty highway, wiping the fog off my windshield every few seconds. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. I picked up, and all I heard was wet breathing, slow, heavy. Then the same chilling voice from the diner whispered, "You saw me. Now I follow." The call ended. I stared at my phone in disbelief. No call history. No trace it ever happened. I didn't go straight home. I drove for nearly an hour, hoping the rain would ease up or my fear would fade. But the storm stayed with me, like it was moving with my car, chasing me. When I finally got home, I ran inside, soaked to the skin. My apartment was silent, but the windows were fogged, and water trailed along the floor like someone had just walked in with me. I didn't sleep. All night long, I heard the creaking of wet floorboards. Though my apartment has none, I heard dripping like water falling steadily onto tile. When morning came, the news said the storm had ended at midnight, that the whole town was sunny and dry. But for me, the rain hadn't stopped. I still hear it, outside, inside, behind walls. Even now, it follows me. Today, I found a puddle in my closet. And on the mirror, words had formed again. He sits at the last table. Last night, I unplugged my phone. Didn't help. The doorbell rang at 3:17 a.m. When I looked through the peephole, no one was there. But my hallway was wet, and I swear I saw footprints appearing one by one, inching closer to the door. Tonight, the thunder's louder. The puddles are spreading. The footprints keep returning. And I know this time, he won't stop at the door. Erin. And this happened a year ago when I was a freshman at a small college in Oregon. It was finals week, and I had just left the library close to midnight. The rain was falling hard, thick, cold sheets that soaked everything within seconds. My usual walking route back to the dorm took about 20 minutes. But that night, desperate to avoid the storm, I took a shortcut through an old maintenance path behind the engineering building. I'd never gone that way before. Barely lit, lined with broken pavement and overgrown trees, it ran alongside a narrow, outdated storm drain system. Huge grated openings sat every 30 feet or so, like mouths in the ground swallowing the rain. Halfway down the path, I thought I heard something, a whisper, faint, carried in the rushing water. I stopped. There it was again. Not words, but definitely a voice. Human, raspy, soft. I crouched near the nearest grate, listening closely. That's when I heard it clearly. Help. Me. Down here. I stumbled back. The voice had come from inside the drain. For a moment, I told myself it was just the storm playing tricks. Wind can carry voices, right? Rain echoing through. Concrete can sound like whispers. I kept walking, but slower now. Then I heard it again. Please, help. Clear. Weak. Human. I stopped cold, heart thudding, and turned back to the nearest drain. The water rushed into the grate like a waterfall, and yet, beneath it, I could hear that same voice. Male, maybe. Desperate. I crouched down and called, "Are you hurt? Hello?" No response, only rushing water. Then, faintly, like someone right beneath me, "Just lift the grate." I stared at it. The metal bars were old, rusted at the edges. I gripped one, testing it. It was loose, far too loose for something that was supposed to stay sealed. A sudden gust of cold wind made me flinch, but I couldn't shake the thought. What if someone really was down there? I took out my phone, turned on the flashlight, and leaned in. The beam cut through the water and shadows, revealing the tunnel below. It wasn't a modern drain at all. It looked more like an old, crumbling passage with stone walls covered in black mold. Then something moved. Just a flicker at the edge of the light. A shape, low to the ground, crawling. I whispered, Are you okay?" The voice came again, but it was different, calmer, almost emotionless. "Yes, I just need you to open it. You're kind." I could tell. I took a step back, suddenly overwhelmed by an instinct I couldn't explain. Something wasn't right. The voice sounded like someone pretending to be scared. Too soft, too measured. I asked, "Who are you?" Silence. Then a long breath from the drain, wet, gurgling. "You've heard me. That's all I needed. Now you see me." And in the narrow beam of light, I saw them. Eyes, dozens, lining the stone walls, not reflecting the light, but absorbing it, sucking it in like it was feeding. I stumbled back, nearly slipping in the water, and then I heard a second voice from behind me. "Don't lift the grate." I spun around. A janitor stood there, soaked to the bone, holding an old flashlight. His face looked grim, serious, like he'd seen this before. "Whatever you think you heard, it's not real," he said. "It talks when it's hungry. You almost gave it what it wanted." He led me away from the drain without saying much, just walked beside me, silently, like someone guiding a survivor out of a war zone. Once we were under the shelter of a nearby awning, he lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "It doesn't try to pull you in," he said quietly. "It wants you to come willingly." He told me he'd worked there over 30 years, said the drains weren't just storm tunnels, they were built over older passages that were never mapped, part of some forgotten infrastructure no one took responsibility for. He said when the rain comes heavy, something beneath the campus wakes up. It speaks through the drains, uses voices. Sometimes it sounds like a kid, sometimes a woman crying, always just believable enough to make you stop and listen. "Every few years someone vanishes," he muttered. "Always during storms. They're marked after hearing it once." I couldn't sleep that night. Every pipe gurgle, every drain hiss made my skin crawl. I kept my light on until dawn. I started avoiding that entire side of campus, took longer routes, even in the rain. Weeks passed, finals ended, summer break came. I told myself I imagined it all. Stress, lack of sleep, a creepy coincidence. Then, one overcast afternoon, I passed near the same path while heading to the bookstore. And I saw her, a student, sophomore maybe, kneeling near the same grate. Her head was tilted, just slightly. Listening. I yelled, "Hey, get away from there!" She didn't even flinch, just leaned closer. By the time campus security arrived, she was gone. No one saw her leave. Her dorm room untouched, her phone still charging on the desk. That night, the rain returned, and under the sound of thunder, I swear I heard two voices in the drains. One was calling someone's name, the other was laughing.